Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Flying and Eating. Today, let's go somewhere and do something, and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Guten Morgen. Hey everybody, welcome. So on today's adventure, we're going to Germany. Yeah, but we're not going through Lufthansa. We are here at United Terminal 1. I forgot to film downstairs, my bad. Anyway, yeah, so we're going off to, first we have to go to Newark to change planes, and then we're going directly to Berlin, the best part of Germany in my humble American opinion. But before we do that, we have to go through security and stuff. So let's go. Security unlocked. On my way. All right, heading over to the gate. No time for the club lounge. Right, I am officially in New Jersey, the land of virtual girl Candace, who doesn't live here anymore because I guess she doesn't like it anymore. Anyway, so we have a little more time this time for our connection, so I'm going to go over to the United Club, of course. This one, it's near like 120C, something like that. It's got a great buffet. I've shown it to you guys before. I'm hungry. Let's do this. So, of course, I've shown you Newark EWR in the past. It is a United hub. One of their two East Coast hubs, the other being IAD Dulles, but this is their far more important one. You might be wondering why I didn't fly just directly to Berlin. They don't actually do that out of Chicago because Berlin's a low priority for United. They only fly there once a day exclusively from this airport. And could I have flown, say, United to Frankfurt and connected via like Lufthansa? Yes, but I don't do that. If United doesn't go there, neither do I. Also, this looks like fun. Let's have some fun. Look, the Sega Pluto is ready for takeoff. I'm not really sure what this is supposed to depict exactly. See, we could go to this United Club, but we're not going to do that. We're going to go to the good one. All right, we've got the food. We got a Cubano. There were the devil's cucumbers in there, but I made sure to get rid of that. Over here we have a masala chicken, apparently. We have some rice, and then we have roasted potatoes, which I've put ketchup on. And here we are at the Fancy Bish United Club. I love it.
Welcome aboard. We're happier.
Day 2, technically. So I have landed, obviously, now in Berlin, Germany. I have to go clear customs and everything. I should be exhausted, but oddly I'm not. I slept for like all of an hour. It's gonna hit me hard later. Annoyingly, it's like 7 a.m. right now, and I can't get into the hotel until like 2 p.m. So the next few hours are not gonna be fun. But let's go deal with customs and all that. All right, I just cleared German customs. So I want to point something out here because it's, I think, worth acknowledging. So I have U.S. Global Entry, which if you have that program, there's like partner programs that work with it. For example, the Canadian Nexus program, I believe there's a South Korean program. There's actually a German program called Easy Pass. Now, I can't show it to you because they don't like when you film in areas like that, but when I was over there, there's an Easy Pass lane specifically for EU citizens and anyone who's eligible. So I went to go use it because I have signed up for it. I've even shown it to you guys in previous videos, but they had like a little dude there whose just job is, you know, Americans can't use that line, Canadians can't use that line, Australians can't use that line, whatever it is. And I was like, no, I have Easy Pass. Like, Americans can't use Easy Pass. I even pulled up like the article proving that I can, and he was just like, nope, forced me into the long line. But that part's like, not that I had any reason to rush. However, my actual border agent dude was cool as shit. He was just like, how long you here, dude? All right, enjoy. Like, that guy was cool. I need coffee, so I've already tapped my credit card. We have a coffee preparing right there, and I have to wait for the lights to turn green. And once they are, I can auf grünes Licht warten. Wait for the green light. My German is terrible. Hashtag Volkswagen. So after you go through customs, you go to the luggage area. There's a secondary customs. Sometimes they stop you, sometimes they don't. They stopped me just to ask what country I was from. Said the U.S. He's like, oh, the U.S. And then just waves me in. This is kind of cool. On the ground, they have money, but it's like built into the textiles. I think that's really cool. It is many hours later. I need to sleep. I'm in the hotel room. But I do want to tell a story because I swear this happened. So you might be wondering, if you've never been to Germany, what the language barrier is like if you don't speak German. I don't speak German other than I can yell Volkswagen, you know, it's not very useful. But, you know, I can thank. In the cities in particular, you never really have this problem. I talked about it in Frankfurt, of course, also here in Berlin. A lot of stuff defaults to English. It's kind of expected.
I'm not saying don't learn any German. I'm just saying you don't necessarily need it. Anyway, so like I Ubered over here, no big deal. The Uber driver did speak English, but it was a little limited to the point where we're just not really making conversation. And as we're going along, we're driving past, there was, I don't know if it was an abandoned or failed airport. There's a second airport that never became an airport, and they turned it into like a park. And right as we got to that, he just randomly asked me the most unexpected question that would even be possible in this city. He goes, he says, do you know Adolf Hitler? And I was like, yes. And he just laughs and he goes, that's so crazy, man. I never expected that question to come from a German in this city, because this is, of course, where Hitler died and the end of the war and everything. It's just like, ugh. Anyway, I'm going to take a nap now.
So I'm out and about now. Just kind of, I took a nap and I want to sync up. But, you know, woke up a little hungry. Next to my hotel, which is right there, there's this Italian place. And it has good, you know, recommendations on Google, obviously not far. And I was like, I'm going to sit down in there and just get a little, you know, calzone. That sounds pretty good. And they bring me this monster calzone, to the point where the waiter and I are like laughing about the size of it. I don't know if it's because nobody ever orders it or what, but it was huge. And I felt like I was being challenged, like it was patriotic. Can this fat American actually eat this thing? I won. I did it. Okay. Fantastic, by the way. Highly recommend coming out here. This is really good. I just can't get over that calzone, man. Not only was it really good, like really good, like the people working there weren't speaking German. They were all speaking Italian, so it's probably a sign. But also the fact that like their English wasn't very good. Obviously my German/Italian is terrible. So we were just kind of all bonding over like, this calzone's ridiculously big. Let's see if Fatty can eat it. It was fun. Behold, the quintessential stereotypical German car. It's like a Beetle, but like almost looks like East German from the former East Germany. I don't actually know enough about cars, but it's fascinating to see. So you may be wondering, what are we doing right now? What's the plan? Nothing. I'm walking off some calories here. I promise I'll give you guys a lot more history of Berlin and all that kind of fun stuff later when I have woken up more, when I'm not in a, you know, food coma / jet lag. I've been to Berlin before. I'm basically just trying to get my bearings. If you want to know the truth, though, I actually think this is like the Washington, D.C. of Europe. It's certainly my favorite city in Germany specifically, but I would go so far as to say it might be my favorite, like, in all of Europe. I don't know. That or, like, Dublin. Dublin's great. But, you know, personal preference, obviously. But, yeah, we're going to go look at a lot of cool stuff on this trip. Guten Morgen, Day 2, I think. Ein, zwei, why? I don't know German. Anyway, no. It was zwei would be 2. We're on day 3. Anywho, so what I'm going to do now, I got time to kill. I got to go and get some morning pastry, breakfast type of thing. Always get orange juice out here. Orange juice particularly in Europe, is amazing. Because the Europeans do this weird thing that we don't do in North America, and this includes Canada. So they take oranges, and they squeeze them, and that's how you get the juice. Novel idea instead of chemical nasty crap that we do. So, but yes, always get that. You get a coffee, and then I've been told like the omelets and stuff are pretty good. And I think it's a place like right over here somewhere called the Cafe. Very basic name, but I'm sure we'll find it. So I just left the cafe. Now, I'm going to be back there in another day, because 1, the food was phenomenal. I had a great time there. 2, it happens to be run by the same people who run my hotel. So they were really nice about it, and it was just fun communicating. Also just, you know, interesting to just chit-chat with not only them, but other locals that came in. Because like a lot of people here will speak English. Obviously, it is Germany, so they do speak German, but you'll find more often than not people do speak English. And they found me kind of bizarre because it's an American who makes jokes about the fact that they have 2 airports that don't work. And like they were like, what route did you take to get here? I'm like, United through Berlin. They're like, oh yeah, that's a seasonal one. And then you can be like, what, have you ever been to Germany? Oh, many times. How many times have you been to Berlin? 2nd time. Where do you usually go? Frankfurt. They're like, oh, Frankfurt. And you're like, yeah, I know, Frankfurt. You know, you can make local jokes, as it were. It's kind of, this is just like life advice. If you get out there and you see different things, experience different things, when you talk to people who are not your normal walk of life for you, meaning non-locals to you, but you can still relate to them, you'll make friends and instantly bond with people much more easily. Like, here I am in a city I've been to 2 times ever in my life, including this trip, in a country I am not from, on a continent I'm not from, but I'm able to instantly bond with people simply because I have some mutual understanding of the culture, not only from having been here, but having been to other parts of this same country. And then you know from going to those other parts of the country what they do and do not like about each other. I don't know, social interaction is complicated. So I'm out for a walk. There is nobody out here. I think it's because it's the day after Easter at the time I record this, so I think you're probably watching this in like October. Sorry. But anyway, yeah, not a lot of people around today, which is interesting. It was funny I mentioned before when I was in the cafe and I was talking to those guys, we were talking about city stereotypes and stuff, and Berlin gets this stereotype as being like a dangerous city full of thugs and stuff, at least within Germany. And then they were, of course, asking about Chicago, because they were like, oh, it's nothing like that. Like, there you just get shot. And I'm like, really? And I told them, like, I had a bunch of people in town. We're all hanging out, and nobody got shot, and nobody was worthy to get shot, because nobody was cool enough to get shot. The point was diffusing stereotypes. And they were trying to make it clear, and this is the point I'm recording right now, is if you are walking around in Berlin, yeah, you can just walk around. Like, it's all good. It's all good. And this isn't even like the nice area. This is not a seedy area, but it's certainly not the touristy area, which is where we're going. So that caught my attention. I guess this is some sort of aviation museum. I might scope that out later. So I did a little more research on this place, the Technik Museum. So you can see it has that plane out there. Inside, I haven't been in here, but I guess they do have like some aircraft and some cars. There's a lot of film technology. Basically, it's a technology museum. From what I could tell, it doesn't have any like historically individual significant artifacts, like some special plane that did this or whatever. But yeah, it's supposed to be pretty cool. This type of plane, though, is interesting. I'm not saying this one in particular is an individual aircraft is special, but that type of aircraft is what the U.S. Air Force used during the Berlin airlifts to keep the city alive when the Soviets blockaded it and wouldn't let resources in. Basically, the Truman administration said, okay, fine, fly into Berlin and just airlift all sorts of, food and supplies and everything to these people. Let the Russians trick them, I guess. Basically dare the Russians to shoot it down, because if the Russians shoot it down, you've just escalated to World War III. And of course, the Russians weren't willing to fight the Americans. So Berlin airlifts, very significant event in the history of the world, but also very obviously this city. I don't know this for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's got to be a leftover World War II era building. I mean, there's a tour group in front of it, but that's really cool looking. Too bad people have graffitied it though. So I'm not an expert on this, but I think we're, from what I remember last time I was here, we're getting to the area where like embassies are. I don't know what countries that is, but that clearly is an embassy. And then you have this kind of faux Berlin Wall. So you have these pink like tubes, right? From my understanding, those represent where the Berlin Wall once stood. And you have to understand it wrapped all around the city, so it's kind of all over the place. And to any Germans out there, if I misremembered this information and that's not correct, I do apologize. This one I'm sure of, there's a marker here and you'll see these all around. Also a point in where the Berlin Wall once stood. So then you'll see them intersect, and obviously I have no memory of when the Berlin Wall was up, nor did I certainly ever visit here in that aftermath or anything, so I can't say with any firsthand knowledge how true that is, but it makes sense that they would mark it. You see what I mean? Like these, what would be the other purpose of this? I've been told that that's what that's for, is that's a marker and that this is a marker, but they contradict each other. But then again, I wasn't here, so I don't know if maybe, the American side or the west side had one border, while I don't know. We've officially entered gift shop area, by the way, so you can get all sorts of stuff. There's lots of little like bobbleheads and snow globes and things like that that have Berlin Wall chunks. That is a real thing. So some guy just walks up to me in English, by the way, and asks me how to get to the M48. And I said, I don't know, I'm not from here. And then he looks at me like I was wasting his time. It's like, sorry, maybe he thought I was lying to him, but it's like, dude, listen to how I speak. I am not from here. That's one of, actually, those guys are literal tour guides. Ask them. So this area is bringing back memories. Mall of Berlin. Check this out, though. That is the Canadian Embassy for Germany. Shout out to Canada here. Are you excited that we are, sort of, we can go to Canada right now, technically, if we want to. Funny enough, the reason I remember this area pretty well is we have the Joseph the Hardhoff Destroyer embassy there with the McDonald's, but below it, there's a Saturn, which is kind of like a Best Buy. They have lots of good deals on Blu-rays and stuff like that, so I may scope that out later, because a lot of movies are released physically in Germany that, for some reason, don't get released elsewhere. Down here, there's also a German spy museum, and interestingly, this is cool. This is the Wall, or Die Mauer, museum about the wall and the history of that.
pretty cool. If you guys will indulge me, I'd like to tell you a story. The last time I ever saw my mother in Europe was in this mall. I was taking a trip with an ex-girlfriend of mine in Poland, and we were making our way to Germany, then eventually back to the US. And she was taking a trip with one of my cousin's kids, and they were taking a trip around France and to Germany, and would just happen to coincide that we were both going to be in Berlin on the same day. So we decided, we'd all meet up as a group, and we'd go here to this mall and just have, like, you know, some food and just hang out, and she would see my ex and they would chat and blah, 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 blah. And then, she would pass away like a couple years later. She never made it back to Europe, so the last memory I have of her on this continent is inside that mall. This is new. They have a quote from President Obama that I can't read because it's entirely translated to German, but it basically says, you know, Berlin is where the wall fell. It's the world looks to it as a symbol of peace, like something like that. And yet another one from President Kennedy. I also can't read it, but hey, all right, they like U.S. presidents here. So I'm inside a Saturn, which is kind of like a Best Buy, looking at some of the video game exclusives. We've got the simulation of delivery driver. Also, this, I might have to get this because I've always wanted to play dog, but I've never had the chance. So this one got my attention because, you know, of where we are. We're in Germany. It's World War II dogfighting, you know, combat. It's actually a German exclusive game. That's what the rainbow thing means. But I had to translate it. It's basically you play as the Americans shooting down Nazis. They're not proud of their past, and rightly so. So I'm upstairs in the food court right now. You see here, there's a pillar and there's a table right there. That is the table my mom and I sat at the last time I ever saw her in Europe. Yeah, it's nice to see that again. Yoko Ono is still a thing. I didn't even know she was alive. Jesus Christ. Oh my God, there's a photo and everything. See, I knew that Germans were kind of, you know, free in their sexual expression, but I didn't know they sold MILFs. That's pretty cool. I admit I don't know much about music, but I think that's a band, if that's a real thing, that I would have heard of. See, I wish I knew I know the history of the city, but I don't know exactly what the geography once was. Because obviously okay, let's go over some history lesson stuff right now. After the end of World War II, the Allies had agreed that Germany would be split into 4 sections, as would Berlin, the capital. However, because of geography, Berlin ended up being split in such a way where 3/4 of it ended up being the democratic western side. One part ended up being part of the Soviet Union, which didn't sound so bad until you recognize that we're in East Germany and the rest of East Germany fell inside of the Soviet zone. So you effectively had an embassy for the Western powers inside of the Soviet Union. And to that end, the city was very isolated. It was blocked off intentionally with the wall all around it that the Russians really had built. But infamously, the west part of the city was the best part of the area because it had all the democracy, it had all the cool stuff. But the buildings also represent that. A lot of the buildings were very westernized, and obviously on the eastern side that wasn't the situation. But I don't know exactly which ones were American constructed, if you will, versus which ones were Russian influenced. Usually I would think stuff like that would be more Americanized and that would be more of your Western stuff, but I'm just pointing to random examples that could be dead wrong. This is also where, like, the Canadian embassy is, so this is no doubt the Western side, or what was once the Western side. Keep in mind, the wall fell in, like, what, 1989? It's been a minute. We may go over the details of the actual wall in a bit, but prepare yourself, because that story is hilariously stupid. And I mean that in a good way. So again, we have the other side of the Canadian embassy here, which I remember when I was here before, and it's still true, I found hilarious. The Canadian embassy, this is not a joke, is inside of a mall. And that gets funnier when you compare it to the American embassy, which I'll show you guys in a little bit. Yeah, Canada House. The Embassy of Canada, I'm telling you, that's what it is. It's inside of a mall. I love our Canadian brothers and sisters, but come on, that's funny. So you see that building there, it's represented here, right there in the center, and you can see how the wall went all the way around it, because we're pretty much at the actual border, like the primary border. You're about to see something. All right, everybody, we are coming up to the German equivalency of the National Mall in Washington, D.C. Appropriately, you can see the American Embassy, which we're going to go take a look at. Over there, you can see the Reichstag, which again we'll look at, and Brandenburg Gate is coming right up. Right outside the U.S. Embassy there is this. This is actually a Holocaust memorial, obviously built after the war. Appropriately enough, this was built not too far from where
the Fuhrer bunker, or the remnants of it, are, as something of a, not only a reminder of what happened, this was also the west side of it, naturally, because the American embassy was right there, but also just kind of a big FU to Hitler, because his final resting place, if you will, not far from here. You can see that it gets deeper, and then people are kind of, you know, hidden down there. It's an interesting little memorial. So you can see the back of several buildings. We're kind of getting into Embassy Row here. Like I said, that's the American embassy, and down there, I want to say that's the Polish embassy, which is a little weird considering they're next door. They border them. But anyway, yeah, we'll go take a look at some of that. So back there, you can see that kind of a tall building that Berlin is famous for. I don't know if we're actually going to go over there, though, because I have no other objectives in that area. We'll see. I'm not here that long, but I wanted to give you guys a look at it. I'm recharging my patriotism and my freedom over here behind an armed fence. This is what I meant by, you think about the Canadian embassy is inside of a mall. This one is next to Brandenburg Gate, the American embassy. It's got a nice, beautiful fence around it and all that sort of stuff. It's intense. I love it. Yeah, the U.S. Embassy here is no joke, man. It makes sense for historical reasons. I mean, the United States had to basically settle West Germany and, of course, West Berlin, and then had to fight the Cold War here. Like, it makes sense that we'd have basically the equivalency of the Pentagon here. It's pretty neat, though. And there she is, Brandenburg Gate, one of the most iconic, if not the most iconic piece of architecture in Germany. And just to the right of it, like I said, the American Embassy. You go in there, and we'll show you in a little bit. It's right there. Like, you can, I hate to say it, but you can tell who won both wars. So here they have kind of an illustration of what the city looked like. Of course, the whole thing is Berlin, but Berlin was cut by the wall. And then showing infamous moments, obviously, Brandenburg, which is right there. The Soviets standing there. At one time, this is all it was. This is like, I think, after the war. And now the American Embassy is here and everything. Reagan, of course, coming out here. The wall built right in front of it, which they still have illustrated there. Yeah, this is a very significant place in the history of the world. Speaking of Reagan, they built this. This is a Ronald Reagan memorial. It says, Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate, tear down this wall, referring to the Brandenburg Gate, because infamously, that's where he was when he made that speech. So Ronald Reagan actually has quite a few memorials throughout Europe. I know there's one in Gdansk, Poland, called Ronald Reagan Park. He's kind of a hero within Eastern Europe. For anybody worried about it, yes, of course, the Sega Pluto made it to the Brandenburg Gate. It's amazing, isn't it? Like, this is one of the most significant places, hardest borders in the world to cross for so many years, and now it's just nothing because it all unified under the West. It'd be like casually strolling across North and South Korea at a certain time. Like, for those who are younger, that's what this was like. So when you get to this side, I mean, I'm just going to be honest, you can tell who won the wars. You know, the U.S. Embassy's right there, French Embassy's right over there. Like, a lot of the good guys. Then there's the Russians, who are obviously not the good guys, but they're here too. I mean, you come in here, not only do you see the U.S. Embassy instantly, you also see the other U.S. Embassy, a Starbucks. And right here you have the Russian Embassy, and as you can see, heavily guarded. To be fair, so is the American one. But since the Ukraine war started, this has been a lot more intense, is my understanding. Not that this is that shocking, but I guess we finally have confirmation. This is, of course, the British Embassy, and it's a really nice looking one, too. Yeah, if you come out to Berlin, I highly recommend scoping out this area. As you can see, tourists love it. It's also obviously very multicultural because there's all the embassies. Everyone speaks English. It's very, very cool out here. I like it.
And that'll do it for part 1. Thank you so much for watching. Please stay tuned to part 2, in which we're going to be talking all about the World War II history and Cold War history, showing you off a bunch of sites in Berlin. It's going to be a lot of fun, as well as, of course, the Berlin Wall, very obviously. So if you guys can do me a favor until then, please like this video, comment down below, subscribe if you've never done that before, and check out all the social media stuff in the description. I've got Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, Spreadshirt, etc. Appreciate the support. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all later.